Добрый вечер, в эфире передача «Круглый стол» с Рахимом Ушакбаевым. И у нас сегодня снова будет нестандартный формат обсуждения. Как известно, 27 декабря 2019 года нашу страну постигла трагедия. Под Алматы потерпел крушение самолет авиакомпании Bek Air с 95 пассажирами на борту. В катастрофе погибли 12 человек, в том числе командир воздушного судна. Как известно, начала работу комиссия по расследованию происшествий. Рассказать о том, что же произошло в тот злосчастный день, кто виноват, что мы можем сделать, чтобы не допустить впредь подобных инцидентов, нам поможет сегодняшний гость Питер Гриффитс, генеральный директор АО «Авиационная администрация Казахстана». И прежде чем перейти к дискуссии, позвольте мне более подробно представить господина Гриффитса. Господин Гриффитс назначен директором авиационной администрации Казахстана в августе прошлого года. Ранее он возглавлял Департамент гражданской авиации Министерства транспорта в Великобритании и курировал работу британского государственного агентства гражданской авиации. Кроме того, он являлся директором по безопасности полетов и авиационной безопасности в компании EasyJet Luton. Был руководителем проекта по запуску нового лоукостера Bek Air. Летал в качестве командира на воздушных суднах Airbus 320 и Boeing 737. В разные годы работал на руководящих должностях Европейской комиссии. Был вице-президентом Европейского региона Международной ассоциации воздушного транспорта IATA. Акционерное общество «Авиационная администрация Казахстана». Она отвечает за контроль за обеспечением авиационной безопасности и соблюдение требований организациями гражданской авиации и является подведомственной организацией Комитету гражданской авиации. Это новый подход, который реализован в рамках реализации 100 шагов 5 национальных реформ. Соответственно, этот подход в части обеспечения безопасности полетов соответствует лучшей мировой практике регулирования отрасли и внедряется у нас в Казахстане впервые. Good evening, Peter. Thank you for coming to our program. So first of all, let me ask you about this accident. So you made decision to suspend the Bek Air operation. So what is the reason and what is your view on this accident?
Okay, when I was first informed of the accident, I took a time to read all of the material that we had on Bek Air. Two things stood out. The first is that the airline had a serious accident in 2016. In addition to that, we also had the fact that they had refused to do an IOSA certificate. This caused me a bit of concern in that if an airline is operating in these conditions and they've had 2 accidents within a short period of time, then it is apparent that there is something not working within the airline. So for the terms of public safety, I grounded the airline whilst we took an investigation into how the airline is operated.
Let's talk about the accident. What is the main version? What is the reason? So are you the part of this investigation team?
So I'm not part of the investigation team because under the international rules, an independent investigation is set up using experts from around the world. The current experts that you have are from Moscow, from MAK. In addition, you have the support of the United Kingdom and from Holland and from Germany, who represent not only the state of manufacture of the aircraft, but also the state of design. So our role is to look at the wider picture. Why is the airline having so many issues from a safety perspective? 2 accidents in this period of time, in a short period of time, is unusual for such a small carrier. So we launched an investigation into how the airline is being operated, to look at its safety standards, its safety management system, how it maintains its aircraft, and how that is managed and controlled.
When did you launch this investigation?
That investigation was launched the day of the incident. So the day of the incident, I travelled with the ministers down to Almaty to go and have a look at the crash site and to have a look at the conditions that they were operating in. So I travelled with the Deputy Prime Minister and we went and visited the crash site. We went and looked at the runway and we also had a big discussion with the airport. It became apparent during that there were some safety concerns that were being raised by people at the time that we needed to look into. I formed a commission, and that commission is still investigating the matter. It has been supported by UK Civil Aviation Authority staff who've been out here in Kazakhstan and looking at the records that the airline has, in addition to looking at their aircraft and looking at the operating conditions and how they operate the Fokker.
Okay, we have discussion, especially in social media, in press, that Bek Air, before this accident, they refused to pass the certification, obligatory or voluntary certification. Could you please explain?
Yeah, the IOSA audit is a industry standard audit which is being passed by 430 airlines worldwide. 193 of those are non-IATA airlines. So it is an international standard which is recognized by airlines globally as being a good aviation standard.
But this standard is not obligatory for
It's not obligatory here for carriers operating a domestic service. So I understand that the government tried to implement it, but they lost in court. So it allowed Bek Air not to implement the IOSA audit. The other airlines did do the IOSA audit, and they are all operating at a standard which has been accepted as a good operational standard from an IATA regulatory model. What we need to do is to be able to improve on that by bringing in additional standards that we would do as a regulator. This is above the industry standard.
Mm-hmm. And do you think this IOSA standard will be obligatory in Kazakhstan?
I think it's obligatory for the time being because it is an acceptable level, and if you wish to operate internationally, it's a good level for you to attain. So in particular, if you wish to operate with other airlines, so for example, Air Astana has it because it's an IATA airline which carries passengers on behalf of other carriers. They all have to operate to the same international safety standard, and IOSA is that accepted standard. So those airlines that carry out interline agreements, which is the ability for you to buy a ticket on another aircraft, that is carried out using the IOSA standard. So this is a very good standard to go for. It's not the whole picture though, because here in Kazakhstan we need to improve the regulator. The regulator itself needs to operate at the same high level as the rest of the international regulators around the world. And that's why the Aviation Administration of Kazakhstan was created.
Okay, so let's talk about the aviation administration a little bit later. Let's talk about the accident. So can you tell you as a professional, tell us your vision, what could be the reason for this?
Well, the reason has been announced by the Commission already as being an icing issue.
It's an official reason or it's a version?
No, that's the official reason that we've been given, and that's been announced by the Deputy Prime Minister along with the investigation team. So perhaps it would be helpful to understand what the icing reason is for the people that are listening. Essentially, this aircraft, the Fokker 28-100, has a particular issue with icing. This was identified in 1993. There was an accident in Skopje, Macedonia, which identified that the wing has a particular problem with ice accumulation. So a large portion of the lift is generated from the front end of this wing. As a result of that accident, an airworthiness directive was made for all operators to do what is called a clean wing check on this airplane. This means that the pilot of the aircraft needs to have a look at the wing prior to every flight to check the upper surface, the front and the lower surface is clear of ice, and ensure that if it is there, that the aircraft is de-iced properly to ensure that all ice is removed. It says in the aircraft operating manual that ice accumulation on this wing could increase the stall speed by up to 30 knots, which is quite a significant margin above the normal takeoff speed. So there is also an alternative procedure that if the pilot thinks that the wing is contaminated, there is an alternative procedure that they can use. In both of those cases, we are looking to see what Bek Air uses, and my commission will have a look at the operating standards, and we'll be making an announcement next Monday as to what we've found from that commission.
Mm-hmm. And the pilot didn't do the procedures.
At this stage, I'm not doing the accident investigation, but we do know from the video evidence gathered from the airport that there is no check of that wing.
Okay, how do you assess the level of safety of flights in Kazakhstan?
Generally, the safety here is reasonably good, and it's starting to improve. So many of the airlines have gone through the IOSA system, so they're already operating with the latest mechanisms that airlines use, like safety management system and risk assessment. So that's been improved as a result of introducing the IOSA audit. What we don't have here, and we need to generate, is an improved safety culture. This is about reporting safety-related issues, and that we as a regulator would take part in the investigation of those issues to ensure that we are addressing all of the safety concerns. It's expected that throughout the coming year, I will be doing a safety perception survey of all of our operators, and we'll be assessing what that level of safety culture is. It's one of the key mechanisms that we use as part of the regulatory process to ensure that safety levels are improving. So we will do a baseline survey later on this year to find out where the safety levels are, what the perception is, and how we can improve it.
I think it's time to talk more about aviation administration of Kazakhstan. What are you doing? What is your status?
Okay, the Aviation Administration of Kazakhstan was created on the 1st of August as part of a government initiative to bring European regulatory practice here to Kazakhstan. I arrived here on the 21st of July, and we took over running the aviation safety system and regulatory structure on the 1st of August. Since then, we've been recruiting staff. Now, one of the main reasons that you have struggled with this particular issue is that you've not been able to attract international cooperation and staff. Aviation Administration of Kazakhstan has the ability to bring in international people, and one of the first things that we did was put into place a contract with the UK Civil Aviation Authority to help support us as we grow. It takes approximately 3 years to grow a new regulator. It takes approximately 2 years to train all of the staff. So the first part of it was to get a baseline review done, which we completed with the UK Civil Aviation Authority in October. We reported that to the government, and we've now created the action plan that we are going to operate over the next 3 years in order to build a proper regulatory system here in Kazakhstan.
And what do you think, how fast we can increase safety in aviation industry?
Well, safety systems are built by people. If we manage to convince them that they need to move to a new process, then safety systems can be built quite quickly. One of the things that is great about aviation is it's international in nature. And as a result, that international cooperation, sharing information about accidents and incidents, and sharing control measures will generate a proper safety culture very quickly. So I'm confident that we'll be able to improve the standards, get full international cooperation in the next 2 years.
As far as I know, last 3 years, 10 leading air companies refused to work with Kazakhstan. What is the reason?
Well, partly
KLM, British Airways, Austrian Airlines, China Southern, Czech Airlines.
Yeah, and all of those airlines have probably withdrawn for 2 reasons. First of all, the safety issues that you had here in Kazakhstan. You were on the blacklist for a long time of the European Union. You had difficulties in creating a proper regulatory structure, and as a result, they will have seen that the airline industry is not operating at a full international cooperation level. But I also think that in order to grow airlines, you need the right mechanisms in place in the country. An airline itself doesn't generate the travel opportunities. It's the businesses that operate here in Kazakhstan operating internationally. So, for example, in London, with the international banking industry, a large portion of its airline industry is to support the banking industry. So here in Kazakhstan, you need to link to all of the international centres, and your president has said that. So we would expect to see similar mechanisms occurring here in Kazakhstan, but also you have a large manufacturing industry, you have a farming community, and as you become more international in doing your business, the airline industry is there to support you. So I would expect the airlines that will come here and operate here need to be in support of other programs like tourism, industrial manufacturing, and banking and service industries.
So it depends on economic and business activities.
Exactly. So the economics is the driver for the aviation supports the economics.
Also, it's we have broad discussion about how safe is to fly by Kazakhstan air companies. So we have for the moment 4 companies, Air Astana with 2 brands. We have Kazakh Air, we have SCAT, and we have Bek Air. So how you can assess the kind of place, how you can give us a kind of rank of safety of these companies?
Well, it's always difficult to rank them in safety because they're all different airlines, but let me try and give you some flavour for how we're doing this. When we started the Aviation Administration, working with other ministries, and in particular the Transport Prosecutor, we've been developing a picture of all of the airlines. So every airline has a process of being looked at in detail. We've just finished Air Astana and Fly Air Aristan. We now have an idea of how good they are. We've just started on SCAT, so we've just started the inspections on SCAT, and then we'll be looking at Kazakh, and then the next one was to be Bek. We chose them in order of size. It wasn't a view as to whether or not they were particularly safe or not safe. It was just the bigger risk requires the earlier treatment. So as we do that, we're already making recommendations of improvements that they can make. So Air Astana has already received those notes from us. When we finish the work with SCAT, then there'll be some measures that we put in with them. And then as we go through, the other airlines will do the same. The accident with Bek Air has prompted us to bring that forward. So we've now started that investigation. We started it on the day of the accident. I extended the commission today to take them to the end of the week because they asked for a few more days to finish off the inspection. And next Monday, you can expect us to make a view of Bek Air.
Also, we have a discussion about cost of the tickets, and we have a big difference in if you fly by Air Astana. It's safe, it's very comfortable, but it's a little bit expensive. Also, we have low-coster fly Aristan, which is cheaper. You have broad experience of launching low-costers. How you can comment on?
Okay. Low cost doesn't mean low standards. One of the things that we used to be labelled with in the industry in Europe in 1998 when I started with a low-cost airline is low cost equals low standards. If you operate a low-cost airline like that, and a good example is ValueJet in the United States, if you operate to those sort of standards, you will have an accident and you will go out of business fairly quickly. What we generated within the low-cost industry in Europe is low cost equals high standards. You cannot afford to have disruptions. You cannot afford to have mechanisms that stop you from operating. You must always operate to the highest level. We bought brand new equipment. So both EasyJet and my own airline that I started in the Middle East, we bought brand new airplanes because we know that we're going to push them to the limit. So if you looked at British Airways in 1998, its short-haul fleet did about 6.5 hours per day. Operating as EasyJet, we were flying 13 hours a day with a similar sort of aircraft. It means that the turnarounds are quite short, but it means that your crews must operate at a very high level in order to make that happen. So low cost does not equal low standards. Low cost equals a lot of attention to detail, a lot of good procedures which are well trained into the crew. So that's what we look for in low-cost airlines, is that higher level of operating capability, that higher level of understanding that you would have in any large industrial process. Because you cannot afford to have accidents, that's the first thing, but also every disruption costs you money. So the second thing that you do with low-cost airlines is that you have high volume equipment. In EasyJet, we operated the Airbus A319. It had 156 passengers on board instead of its initial design load. We redesigned that aircraft with Airbus, and then we got it recertificated for the new passenger load. Because more passengers means that lower cost for the individuals. So there are certain types of aircraft which are well tailored to operating low-cost airlines. The Airbus A320, or single aisle family as they're known, and the Boeing 737 fleet. Both of those are considered to be the home of low-cost airlines. When you operate other aircraft, then the economics of it change, and sometimes you're not able to operate at those lowest possible prices. So it's very important that the fleet that you buy and also the way that you operate the aircraft is considered very carefully in order to ensure that your airline is operating at a profit, but at the same time it's operating with the standards that you require to absolutely ensure safety.
The President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev announced a regime of open sky. What does it mean?
Open skies means that you open up your airspace to operators from outside to be able to operate in the same way as your local carriers. So when you look at the largest Open Skies Agreement, which is the EU Open Skies Agreement, every airline that operates within the EU has the ability to operate in every other EU country. So for example, Ryanair, which is one of the biggest low-cost operators, is based in Ireland, but it operates from many countries as if they were based in that country. So Poland, the United Kingdom, Italy, it has bases in all of them. So open skies means more competition, more ability to generate good quality flights, and at the end of the day, a better price for the individuals who are buying tickets. So open skies agreements are generally good for aviation because it generates travel opportunities for others at a price that they can afford.
Well, in case of Kazakhstan, as far as I know, Air Astana was not completely happy on the open sky regime when we signed the agreement on Eurasian Economic Union. So, and in the case of Kazakhstan, this regime of open sky, what do you expect?
Well, I would expect that some of the operators from outside, in particular places like Malaysia, for example, where you have a very big low-cost airline, AirAsia, may wish to take the ability to operate into and out of Kazakhstan and offer opportunities for others at a price which is much lower. The operating cost of AirAsia is extremely low. I know that from discussions with Tony Fernandez, who operates that particular airline. But it doesn't mean to say that that will damage Air Astana. It's a different operating model. It has the ability to generate its own market. And competition is generally good for the aviation industry because it generates change and opportunity for people to buy tickets at a better price. So I'm pretty sure that Air Astana and Air Astana will survive any open skies agreement because I haven't seen British Airways or Aer Lingus go out of operation, but it may be that one or two of the other airlines will have to improve in order to deal with the competition.
Okay, and now the last question, maybe you can give advice to our viewers who is afraid of flying, aerophobia. How to make safer flights, and maybe you estimate on how safe is the flights in Kazakhstan.
I think that the airlines that are operating here at the moment, they're reasonably safe. They're all operating to international standards. There is always something more that they can do, and we are working with those airlines now to ensure that their operating standards increase quite rapidly. But when you compare where Kazakhstan is today to many of your neighbors, Uzbekistan, for example, we look at China to the east, and we look at some of the airlines perhaps in the European region, they're pretty comparable. So Air Astana would be just the same as Aer Lingus or one of the big airlines operating in Europe. And Kazakh Air is no different to Flybe, except that they seem to be making money rather than Flybe is losing money. But they're all operating the same aircraft. They seem to be operating to the same standards. We as a regulator will be ensuring that they improve on those standards. What I'm looking for is a high quality, high resilient set of airlines here in Kazakhstan that can assure their passengers that they're operating at a good safety standard so that when you buy your ticket, you know you're going to get there.
Okay. And I hope that Kazakhstan and the aviation industry will learn the lessons from this accident.
I think we have to. If we don't learn the lessons, then we've missed a great opportunity to improve our industry. This is a great country. I'm pleased to be here. And most importantly, Kazakhstan needs a very good quality aviation system.
Thank you, Peter. It was a big honor to have you in our
You're very welcome.
program. Thank you. В заключение еще раз хотел бы выразить соболезнования родным и близким погибших при падении самолета 27 декабря 2019 года под Алматы. И напомню слова президента Касым-Жомарта Токаева о том, что все виновные понесут строгое наказание в соответствии с законом. А мы будем надеяться, что такой инцидент больше никогда не повторится в нашей стране. И замечательно, что Казахстан получает передовую зарубежную экспертизу в области обеспечения безопасности полетов. До встречи на следующей неделе.